Hello, word nerds, and thank you so much for joining us tonight in our first ever Word Nerds Plan In. Tonight we are going to be brainstorming and talking about our ideas for our nano stories. And if you guys don't really have too much of an idea, we're here to help you with that. Um, so first, I wanted to ask all of you guys, all you word nerds, are you doing Nano this year? And we'll start with Megan.
I am. I am very excited for NaNoWriMo this year. I'm finishing up revisions on a different book, and I should pretty easily have those done by November 1st. So I'm really eager to dive into. If you guys watched my book where I tried to choose between two ideas, it's going to be that other project, but I'm restarting it altogether and going in a completely new direction with it. And I am so excited. I've got my new notebook, and it's really shiny, and I love it.
Ooh.
And so I'm going to be doing all my idea brainstorming in it today.
Nothing says new project like a new notebook.
Right, and a jar full of markers.
Oh, yes. All right, Rachel, what about you? Are you doing Nano?
I'm not doing Nano this year, but I am going to be, I guess, casually working on a project whenever we do Word Nerd Workshop, so I don't feel left out, and I'll be cheering on everybody who is.
She's doing that full-time work and full-time student life.
One day I will participate in Nano, but it is not this year. But one day, but yes, but I'm here to cheer everybody on.
Nano is like in the worst spot in the year for
it
students.
Truly is. Like that's when my all my final big essays and final projects and like final exams are either like the last week of November or the first week of December. So I'm like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
One day when I'm done with school.
All right, Kyra, what about you? Are you doing Nano this year?
I am. I have like a 5-year win streak for Nano, so I'm committed.
Nice.
So yeah, I have this project that I've been working on that is very mentally taxing. It's just a hard book to write. There's a lot of stuff going on, lots of point of views, lots of twists. So for Nano, I'm going to switch it up and write something really fun and fluffy. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Nice. I need you to send some of that winning energy my way, please. I will also be doing Nano. I had a work in progress that was supposed to be done at the end of this month. That's not going to happen because of school. So I'm taking a break from writing as much as I was to focus on school, so then I can neglect school for entirety of November and work on my book.
Perfect.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I'm really excited. I draft in a draft 0 a lot of times, so I and then this happens, and then I move on. So since I am so far in my work in progress already, I'm hoping to finish it and then be able to go back to the beginning and finish, make it at least a draft 1. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on. Make sure to let us know what you guys are working on in the discussion section. I am super excited to hear about everyone's ideas.
Yeah, we've got some people here with us already. Hello to Misty Kate and Michelle and Ellen. Ellen said, hello, I'm so glad my phone notified me during your planning instead of after the fact. I'm glad too.
Me too. We love having you guys.
Yes, and Misty Kate said, doing Nano but don't know which project yet. Hopefully we can help with that. This is, like Des said, it's our first time doing it, so we're going to have some exercises and stuff, but if there's anything you want us to focus on instead, or if you want help with brainstorming, we are here. Just want to be helpful and have fun.
Yeah.
God, how's it already October?
I don't even understand how fast 2020 is going by. It freaks me out every time I wake up and I see the date.
Oh no. Oh, we've got some more people jumping into the comments, and Griswold is here and says, I started PREPTOBER research last night. I was supposed to be looking for books about colonizing Mars. Instead, I found 10 books about witches that I want to read. This witch story just won't let me go.
Isn't that always the case?
Sabra said, I'm outlining my book, The Plague Wolf, Book 1. Kelly's here in the comments. Word Nerd Kelly. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm working on for Nano, but still have a lot of prep to do. Ellen said, I'm doing some character development and scene development for the 3 works in progress I hope to work on during Nano. Jennifer said, no idea what I'm doing for Nano, maybe fanfic, like in July. And Michelle said, this will be my 3rd NaNoWriMo. For once, I'm not going in with a vague idea and a pantser's ways, and instead I'm trying to plan 30 horror short stories exploring people's fears.
Ooh.
And lastly, Winry101 said, hello, I'm working on a fanfic that I started writing ages ago and never finished. Barely have 2 chapters. And that is everyone who has said hello so far. If you want to say hello in the comments.
Well, sounds like people are busy, which is great.
Yes. I love, one of my favorite things about Nano is just like the community and like knowing that like I'm not the only person like trying to plot right now, or you know, when we are in Nano, you can always find like a write-in and find other people to write with, and that's like super awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm really curious to see if it feels any different now that it's all virtual this year, since there won't be any like in-person sanctioned write-ins.
So for our plan in, we were kind of thinking of structuring it similarly to a write-in. Every sprint will have a sort of prompt to flesh out your brainstorm, and then we'll come back and we will talk about it. And they'll definitely be shorter than the 20-minute writing prompts we get. But for the first one, it is, what is the vibe of your book, or just the genre if you haven't really thought about the vibe you're going for. And we can do that at the 40 since we're so close to it.
Mhm.
And I think we should take only 5 minutes, you know, just to kind of think about it. You can write it down if you want to. I will, because I can't remember things.
Yeah, and I always find too that when I start thinking like, well, what's the feel that I want, that I inevitably end up with flashes of, oh, well, this would be cool in that vibe. This would make a cool setting for that mood. So just like writing it all down.
So it is the 40. We're going to take 5 minutes to write down or think about the vibe or genre of our Nano project. And time. So, how'd it go? What you guys write about?
I just have like a list of words here that like.
Yeah,
So-
just like
so-
some words, some feelings.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've got like some of the stuff I've written down. So much banter, situational humor, shenanigans.
Shenanigans. That's your brand.
It is. Yeah, this say anything specific about this book or just what I write in general.
I put fantasy with adult question mark, YA question mark, not sold either way there. Dark and twisted. I wrote vines wrapping around a former stained glass window, but the glass is blown out. And a Hill House-esque cathedral.
Nice.
Love me some cathedrals.
Yeah. Jennifer said shenanigans are always good.
Love the shenanigans.
Yes.
I put fantasy / light fantasy, so opposite of Megan. Not like there's no curses, there's no, it's just fun magic. Fun magic and court intrigue. I put the color purple because purple is like not really associated with the story, but I want it to be. So that's like something I want to work on adding in. And water, like the imagery of water is pretty heavy in my book.
I did a dark fantasy with fairies, so everything around that is like trust issues, twisty, unsettling, eerie, some of my words, and then I also put frost on mushrooms, hanging moss, rough tree bark, music in the wind, feeling that someone's watching you.
I love it.
I like it. I love that we're both working on Fae novels. Every time you talk about yours, I'm like, ooh, that sounds so
I think
cool.
it's funny though that yours is like light, happy, fun fantasy intrigue, and mine's like dark, creepy weirdness. And it's like the two sides of the spectrum.
I like that you said we were talking about the music and the wind. Like there's a type of magical tree in my story that grows with holes in them. So when the wind blows, they play music.
I love that idea.
Thank you.
I'm also re-listening
Sounds like
to
Dr. Seuss.
It does.
I'm re-listening to the Raven Boys right now on audiobook, and I've just gotten to the part where they like find caves water, so that is like right in my head right now.
Oh, we've got people in the discussion section. I'm gonna put the comments on the screen because that's a thing we can do. Michelle said I put names to a few short stories, so yay!
Yay!
Shout out to Penumbra Mine, who was here for a moment. And Misty Kate is working on adventure fantasy Middle Earth fanfic or crime romance suspense. Could go
Basically
either
the
way.
same thing.
Yeah.
Totally similar genres right there.
Mm-hmm.
We've got comments are shooting up a little bit. Thank you for being here, everyone. Ellen said, I summarized that 2 of the books are romances, one where the main character is single, the other a widow, and another book is a young woman who finds who she really is after a tragedy earthquake, in parentheses. All historical fiction set between 1893 and 1914.
Ooh.
Word Nerd Emma is also here in the comments. Shout out to those word nerds who are in the comments watching. Emma said, I wrote a dark, foggy winter morning vibe. Ooh.
Oh.
Andrew said, my fantasy novel might actually be a spy sci-fi, which would be very different.
You know, sometimes you just find out that they are.
Hello to Nicole, who's here. And Griswold wrote, I also have a list, tech noir, cyberpunk, sci-fi, high-tech, wealth gap.
Ooh, yes, the rich. I'm here for it.
Cyberpunk.
Winry said, I'm looking at a historical drama / mystery / dark fantasy hybrid. Don't know how to word it. I'm playing with the concept of living in a world where when your soulmate dies, so do you during wartime.
Oh.
Ooh.
Like, I am not one for soulmate AUs, but honestly, that one sounds
I'd read
bomb.
that one.
That's so cool.
I'm the opposite of you. I love soulmate stories, and so I definitely am here for that one.
And there was a picture of a cat, so.
Bonus. Right. So the next planning sprint that we're going to do is we're going to think about some comp titles for your Nano project. Now I know it's super early, so you might not have any idea what your plot is yet, but even if you just want to go back to the vibe that you're going for, think about other works, other books. I like to use movies in my comp titles. I know some people like frown on that, but I watch a lot of movies.
At this stage, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
There are no rules.
No rules, anarchy reigns.
And I think there's something useful to be like, oh, well, I want my book to appeal to readers who enjoy. For me, it's like almost always Rory Powers and like one other person. It's like, if you like Rory Powers, Powers? I don't remember.
I think just power.
Rory Power.
Singular.
I hope you will also like my book. And I think it can help in figuring out, okay, well, I wasn't fully settled on a genre, but if I want Rory Power fans to like it, then it probably needs to be set in the real world with a speculative bend to it or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So we can start.
We had a question, it kind of got buried, about third, I can't find it, but it was third person.
Oh, yeah.
How do you do third person?
How do you avoid head hopping in third person?
Yeah.
I remember that now. Apologies for not seeing that sooner.
Sorry, what was the question?
It was, here it is. Sabra asked it. Any tips for not head hopping in third person?
I like having really clearly delineated, like, and even if it's not super marked, like with a chapter heading or something, like, I never swap points of views in chapters. I know some people do it kind of by section, but just like when you're writing, kind of labeling like, okay, this is whose head I'm in right now for this section or this chapter. Whether or not you end up keeping those labels in there.
Yeah, I don't write any omniscient narrator. It's just not my forte. I don't read enough of it to know how to do it well. But I do write almost exclusively in the third person, and I just treat it as an extremely limited POV. And so I think about it the same way that I would if I was writing straight up in the first person. And sometimes you kind of, even in the first person, it's inevitable that here and there you'll kind of slip into someone else's voice a little bit, and it usually beta readers will notice it and be like, hey, it kind of feels like you slipped into this other character's head right here. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, especially when you're drafting in Nano. I think it can give you insight into what the other character, like if you accidentally write down what the other character is thinking, then you can use that later to inform how they would act around your character, like what your character would notice that would tell them that they are thinking that thing, if that makes any sense.
You can also look, yeah, and I think it's fine when you're drafting because it is easy to slip into someone else's. When you're going back and kind of trying to like clean that up and kind of like clean up the perspectives a little bit, one thing that can really help is like deep point of view style. I don't have like a great resource off the top of my head, but if you just Google like deep point of view, there will be some really, really good stuff. And basically the idea behind deep point of view is that you're getting like really intimately inside of a character's head. And it's pretty much impossible to like write deep point of view and then like accidentally be in someone else's head unless you just like completely like it's I think a lot more noticeable than if you have a little more distance between the narrator and the character. So I'd recommend also like looking up articles on deep point of view.
Yeah. In case you don't know, Kyra is our recurring guest word nerd. She edits, and people pay her to do that. So she really knows what she's talking about.
And just, I guess as an example of a book that I think does like third with multiple characters really well and does that deep point of view really well would be Susan Dennard's Truth Witch. I think that's a really good book to read if you're looking at like moving points of views.
Yeah, for sure.
We are at the 5. Did we want to hop into our next planning sprint?
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
Do
so
it.
we will meet back at the hour, and don't forget we are talking about comp titles for our nano projects. and time. So how'd it go for everybody?
Went pretty well. I felt like it was just enough time that I had to really think critically about the books I was choosing. Like I wrote down some and it was like, oh no, not that actually.
Do you want to give us some of your titles you wrote down?
Yeah, I settled on 3. Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan, A Crown of Wishes by Rashmi Chokshi, and The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins.
Oh, I'm intrigued about this story. My God.
Those are all the components, hopefully. What about you guys?
I've got for mine Hot Dog Girl, because it's just generally very cute, and my book is also going to have a theme park setting, which I'm excited about. And then Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, because it's got like a rivals to romance and alternating POVs between the 2 love interests. And then a little bit older title, but The Only Thing Worse Than Me Is You by Lily Anderson. This is still like one of my all-time favorite like YA romance, contemporary romance books. It's got like some of the best banter in anything I've ever read. You have like there's just so much. It's also rivals to romance, and it's just like a character will say something snappy to someone else and they'll respond with something that's just like, oh dang, I went there. So I love that too, and that's like what my contemporaries always aspired to be, is like that book.
I mean, your fantasies also have banter.
Yeah.
I find it's troubling with fairy books because it's so niche that it's a little difficult to step outside of it, because like fairy books, you got Holly Black, who like runs her own fairy book empire, and then like a sprinkling of other ones, so you kind of like can't help but relate it to something like that just because there are so many limited options. So it's like really trying to think about like all my other, I'm like, have I ever read a book where characters go on a quest? No, never in my life have I read this. So now I'm trying to think of like which one have I read that like people often do adventures. I don't know.
For mine, I did no books and all shows and movies because that's what resonates in my brain best. So I have Labyrinth, Rain, Fiddler on the Roof, and Curse.
I'm so hyped for this book that doesn't exist yet.
What was the last one you said? I missed it because I was so hyped about Labyrinth.
Cursed.
Okay.
The Netflix show.
Yeah.
That's like the one Faye show that is like the most recent that I've watched that I really liked.
I'm just mentally trying to like Labyrinth and Fiddler on the Roof. I didn't like mishear that, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Fiddler on the Roof.
I love both of those things. I have no idea how they go together, but
but I am interested.
Count me intrigued.
Yeah.
I have also 3. I put The Cruel Prince meets A Song of Race and Ruin meets Ruin of Kings.
Nice.
Lots of like slight adventure, court intrigue, lots of fae warring factions, and like false heirs.
Just going through the comments right now. Shout out to Barbarella who just joined us. And to Verum who said, I'm new here but really like this idea. Thanks for being here, guys.
Welcome.
Winry said, I'm honestly really struggling with the title for this story. Ooh, story
what
of
a
my
mood.
life.
I have 2 modes. One of them is think of perfect title immediately, and the other is never think of anything remotely good. So
yeah,
this one I think I have a title for, but
care to share, Kyra?
Yeah. So again, rivals to romance. There's a male love interest named Grayson, so the title is Not Today, Grayson.
I love it. Yeah, titles are definitely like hard for me. So this is my work in progress right now for Nano is like I have a title for it. It's A Melody of Glint and Glimmer. And that's like the first time I've come up with a title that like doesn't sound stupid to me. So I like it. But like also I could totally change it and not be affected.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. I've been kind of like thinking about this idea for like a year, and for a while I was just thinking of it as Fives Out because there were 5 main characters and it had a mystery like Knives Out.
Bless.
But yeah,
I love it.
I think a few days back I was like, I need to come up with a real title for this. So the working title now is A Monstrous Devotion, but
Ooh.
I'm not attached to it at this point. And Griswold said, Des and I am on the same wavelength. I have a lot of movies and 1 book. Andy Weird, The Martian meets Terminator 2 and Blade Runner.
Ooh.
Sounds action-packed.
I feel the vibe. I feel the vibe. I like it.
Oh.
So our next little planning sprint is going to be talking about the conflict in our story. So the next 3 kind of all tie together. First, we're going to be talking about conflict. Then we'll be talking about our characters, and then be talking about our setting. And these are really general too. So don't feel like you need to write like 3 pages to flesh these out. We'll be having workshops on character and plot later in the month of Preptober, where we will flesh it out even more.
Yeah, so next week is character, and the week after that is plot, I believe.
Nice. So when you think of conflict, when you're going to like write about it for this next sprint, do you think of conflict as like the inciting incident, or do you have another thing your mind goes to when you think of the conflict in your story?
Whenever anybody says conflict, I just imagine sword fighting. What's the conflict in your story? I'm like, I don't know. There's going to be a sword fight at some point.
So I really like to think about conflict in terms of like what is getting in the way of my character getting what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also kind of good, like as you're brainstorming, like good place to start is like, what do my characters want? Like, what are their goals? What are they working towards? And it does also, I think, tie in with that inciting incident. But for me, especially like from the framework of like I'm writing a YA rom-com, so there probably will not be sword fighting. I won't rule it out yet. There's
never
no
rule
plan,
that out.
no plans at this point for sword fighting.
Keep your options open, you know?
Yeah, it's a theme park.
It is a theme park. Nerf sword. But yeah. I'm gonna write that down. I'm actually gonna write that down. But no, like what is like getting in the way of your character like getting what they want, or at least what they think they want?
Yeah, when I'm coming up with ideas for books, there's usually one of 3 things that might come first, and it's never consistent. I would love it if it was like, oh, I'm always going to come up with character first, so I know what to do from here. But that's not the case. But it's usually either the character or the setting or like a major plot that I want to deal with. And then depending on what ideas I actually have, I kind of go from there. So like if I have this character who like they just seem to have such a strong personality, and I know they would be really cool and interesting to write about, you know, it's sassy banter or something, then I try and look at, well, where could I put them where they would stand out, where they wouldn't be, you know, everyone is like this person, and then what could I make them do to question like who they are? If I have setting, then I look at like, well, who would be an outsider in this world versus an insider, and like which one of those would be the most interesting to me to play with. Or maybe it's both. Usually it's one of each. And then I think about like, okay, well, what has to happen to make them become an insider or become an outsider? Just for starting off, it gets way more complicated than that, obviously. And then if I I've done setting and character, right? So if I have like a plot idea, I think about, well, who would have the hardest time getting the job done that I think would be fun to write getting done? Like who would have to sacrifice the most to make that thing happen?
Definitely. Oh, right. So we're at the 10. So take these 5 minutes until the 15 and write about the conflict in your story. You can also write about your character goals too, if that helps. And time. So how'd it go?
Finishing it off.
Mine was really good, actually. I fixed a small, not plot hole, but like I fixed a reason.
Plot
I
gap.
gave someone a motivation that I didn't have before, so that's great. We love it.
Nice.
I was like, I know this guy has to leave somehow, but I don't know how, but we'll figure that out later. And we figured it out!
Yay!
Yay!
I love when that happens.
Progress.
Little by little.
Progress. Megan, do you want to share since you were so fervently writing down?
So there's a lot of characters, right? So it's kind of just a long list of things that could go wrong. Since I do already know who all the characters are generally. Some of them are very spoilery on the off chance that the book does come out, but I can say I have two major characters, a girl who can't die and a guy who kills anyone he touches if they care about him. And so the conflict that I kind of came up with through that was thinking about like, okay, well, I want the girl to really want to befriend the guy because she is going through some trauma and would like to know that someday she could die, like when she gets much older. And so she wants to befriend him and see if like, maybe if I care about this person as a human, then I will be able to die someday. And so obviously he doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want to kill anyone. But she's going to be like trying so hard to be his friend, and it's going to be great fun. I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with that.
I love
I'm just
it.
thinking, listening to that, you might want to also maybe comp Addie LaRue.
Ooh, that's a good idea, actually.
That's like the immediate
I haven't
also
read
vibe.
it yet, but
Yeah,
it seems great.
It comes out very soon. I'm excited.
I have my conflict. So my main character basically has a year to pass the trials, whereas all the other royals have had their entire lives to prepare. Otherwise, her newfound kingdom will be lost forever.
Very high stakes. Yes.
Mine, I feel like the conflict is fairly apparent because it's a rivals to romance. So, I mean, most of the conflict's kind of internal, but it was good to kind of think about like, kind of more deeply what are the layers of that and like what do the characters want. I know they're both like super overachievers, which I know will cause some conflict. I also got thinking about like what if I want like more kind of external, because it's all very internal conflict right now, but do I want external conflict? What would that look like? So just playing around with some ideas to get some more layers, didn't settle on anything, but I thought about things.
Thinking about things. That's what we want today. Let us know.
Sure to we're doing the same thing, Megan.
Go ahead.
Be sure to let us know about your conflicts for your stories in the discussion section because we love talking about them.
Yes. We've got Winry shared theirs. The town has been stuck in a curse for over 200 years where people die if their soulmate dies. And the main character is the only one who can break the curse.
Ooh.
Ooh, I like it.
A curse story. I would love to write a curse story someday.
I love curses and legends.
Gotta love it.
Ooh, yes. Jeffrey said, the ultimate conflict will be between my protagonist and nature. Yes.
Ooh. We love
like
people versus nature conflict type.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like you hardly ever see them, but whenever I have seen them, I've seen them done well. So
the most haunting books of my childhood were all man versus nature.
Yep. Hatchet scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Oh my god, yeah.
Hatchet is right where my brain went to.
There's a comp title for you.
And Griswold said, I love it. 6 elements I know I wanted to include came together so nicely. Yay.
Ooh, yay. It's always nice when it happens.
That many too. Great.
Penumbra Mine said, all of my projects are third books in their series. I have the plotting and world building done, but the major sub-conflict in all three is overcoming prejudice to stop a war.
Ooh.
Hey, I have that kind of in my book too. Neat.
Yeah, let us know how it's going for you in the comments. If you've got any questions about developing ideas, any exercises you want us to do, you know, we're figuring it out and I'm having fun. So
I couldn't.
thinking about writing.
I don't know if the like unintended side effect of this is that now I really want to write this book and not the book I'm supposed to be writing in October.
The unintended consequence of starting Preptober right in the first week.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be so prepared come Nano, though.
Yes,
Exactly.
I've never been so prepared for Nano.
I've never been. I don't prepare for Nano. I just wing it.
Same.
And you managed to win 5 years in a row. Damn.
Yeah.
Some good
But
winning.
badly. I very much embrace the like this draft does not need to be good mentality. Like I'm really zoned into that, and they are not good. I have 5 wins, and none of them have been. And they've all been things that I've. Well, I think there was one that I got done with. I was like, this is going nowhere, and it's terrible. But the other 4, I like revised and stuff. So.
I wonder, pulling up my Nano. I think that almost all the books that I've queried at least, have been Nano books.
Yeah, I think the one I'm querying right now was a Nano book. I can't remember for sure, but
definitely, if you haven't started yet, you can go on NaNoWriMo.org and you can announce your project to the internet world.
ooh, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I spent too much time adding cover images for each of my projects from the past.
That's productive. That counts as writing.
Definitely.
Totally.
Yeah, my last year's Nano is the one I'm gearing up to query next. And the year before that was the one I'm wrapping up querying now. Nano is magic.
Nano is magic. Since we are running close to the hour, I figured our next planning sprint could incorporate both of our last 2. So we're going to be writing about our setting as well as some of the characters in that setting. I think that'll be interesting. I love hearing about people's settings, especially in fantasy worlds. I'm always super interested in like how people see a certain concept.
Yeah, I definitely love thinking about like the insider outsider thing too that I mentioned before. When you're brainstorming characters, like it's definitely good to, even if you won't have any POVs from an insider or whatever, it's good to know how they might think. And so I always love to consider that when I'm brainstorming, have it inform what my character does. So should we start that at the 25?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect.
2 minutes.
I just looked in the comments, and Penumbra Mine says, I created a Preptember and Preptober project on my Nano page. You are going strong. Like 2 whole months. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it.
If I did that, I'd be so burned out by November. Just be like, never mind.
I used to do that a lot, and then I kind of fell into some more pantser ways. But I'm hoping.
Is that because you started writing with me?
Oh my god!
I feel like that's what happened.
Wow! Why do I even pay for therapy? You just read my psyche. This is amazing.
I should not be your therapist. We just have the same 2 brain cells. I can't be your therapist.
Pass the brain cells back and forth.
Exactly.
I think, for what it's worth, I think I plot a modicum more than I used to. So,
Heyo.
hey.
I have been changed.
Hypothetically, if I was like looking at my Nano page and realizing that I had like 81 unread notifications and freaking out about that, what are we doing for the next sprint that starts in 1 minute? Because I wasn't listening.
We are going to be writing about our setting and our characters.
Okay. Got it.
And with that, it is time. I will see everyone back here at the 30. And time. How'd it go for everyone?
How was that 5 minutes?
I
Wow,
know, right?
it was so fast.
Pretty well.
That's good. I didn't write a lot for this one because I already knew everything like in my head, so I got distracted.
I wrote down, because we only had 5 minutes to do setting and characters, I wrote down just some kind of like general things in that I wanted in the just talked about like the opening scene, which is in a throne room. So we have like some general things about the throne room. So like it's underground and it has white marble floors and this giant like wooden throne and a table that's laden with food, but there's no smells of food anywhere. And there's no discernible light source, but it's still bright. And then for characters, I just kind of jotted down because, of course, if you write fairies, you have Seelie and Unseelie. So the Seelie fairies are like greens, whites, pinks. I put like delicate shoes, long translucent nails. Whereas in the Unseelie Winter Court, we have like black, navy, silver are going to be their primary colors. I put like people that have too many teeth or black scleras. Like general, like this is like the vibe of this character that I want.
Love it.
Nice.
So it's set at a theme park. It's like a superhero themed theme park. So like if the MCU decided to make a theme park, that's basically what this place would be. I spent a lot of time thinking about the geography of the United States and like geographically where I'd want it to be set. I'm kind of leaning towards the Pacific Northwest, but I don't know. It's somewhere.
It exists.
Put it in California. Everything's in California.
I know.
I played a lot with, so I already knew that I wanted this kind of creepy cathedral. And so I was kind of playing with, well, what setting could I put around it that would most play on my characters' like fears and stuff. And then I was thinking about this book that I shelved a long, long time ago that used an extremely creepy forest. And most of the book was just unsalvageable, but I love that forest. So I was thinking of ways that I could pull that forest into this book instead.
I know which forest you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm very excited about it.
I definitely need to flesh out my settings more. That's something I'm really bad at in first drafts. So like in my story, there's 3 kingdoms and they're fae, elf, and goblin. And so like I don't like know what these kingdoms look like yet. I definitely need to like workshop that in my head. And then there's like a school, but it's not a school because I didn't want to call it a school, but that's where like most of the book takes place anyway. So like I think I'd be okay with like not fully fleshing out some of the kingdoms because my characters don't even go there.
Yeah, you know it exists then.
The Goblin Kingdom is entirely in a mountain.
Yes. Okay, I have a hard enough time coming up with one kingdom, let alone 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could just mention like, oh yeah, that one kingdom in the mountains, they're super weird. We don't talk to them, and then just like move on with the story. Like, yeah, great, seems legit.
I don't know them.
Yeah.
You don't talk to them.
Mm-hmm. I hear they always smell like dirt, and then just like move on.
We had a comment from N. Griswold. I'm surprised by how much I know about the setting, and none of my characters have names. Just a protag, mentor, antag, etc. LOL. I guess I know what I'll be doing after the chat. And we had
babynames.org, baby.
Yeah, really.
We had a similar comment from NL Heiser, who said, my Nano novel will be the first book in my upcoming new adult fantasy series. I have the magic system and world building worked out, but I'm struggling with naming side characters. All the naming problems.
Hard.
Yeah.
Like my naming process is either I know the name right away and I build the character off of the name, or it's like their name changes 18 times in between the first draft and the final draft.
Yes.
And then I forget what I named them in the first draft, so then I have to go back and be like, who is this? And I'm like, oh, right, we changed that person's name. This is like 2 names ago.
Yeah. All of my characters, like, so the different kingdoms have different naming conventions because apparently I wanted to make things hard on myself. But it kind of helps when I'm like naming characters. Like I had a one-off character I had to name recently, and all the Fays have musical names. So I named the side character Alto, and I really liked it. And I was like, Googled, musical names, and there's only like 11 to choose from. So they're like all in my story.
Can't have more characters than that.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta cap it at the 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I couldn't come up with more characters because we were doing like Viking names, and we're like, there are only 10 we can pronounce.
Write it down. It's fine. No one's reading this out loud.
No one has to know.
No, but it is co-authored, so we do have to talk about it back and forth.
I'm just thinking like you're at a book launch or something, and like you know how people always read names differently in their heads, or their brain just like skips over it. Like you're at a book launch, and you're like, people like read an excerpt from your book, and you're like, all right, and then you're like, and then
I don't know.
Fear Nagarg is moving along, and everyone's like, what? You're just like, I don't know. Don't worry about it.
I specifically remember going to a book event with Cinda Williams. Ironically, I can't remember how her last name is pronounced. Chima.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about how like when they did the audiobooks, like the voice actor was like, okay, how do you pronounce this? And she's like, I don't know.
I remember Erin doing the same thing.
And not just a couple, it was like the whole book. She's like, I don't know. It just looked good on page. Just whatever you think is good. Sounds fine to me.
I remember the first phone call I ever had with my first agent. It was like the call, and I was so nervous, and I had not thought anything beyond the list of questions that I had that was like this long. And we get on the phone, and she starts talking, and my character's name was Skilla in my head, but it was spelled like Skyla. And so she starts calling this character Skyla, and I was so anxious about it that I was like, who? Like, who are you talking about?
A character that you wrote?
Yeah.
What is this? Like on?
Yeah.
Whoop.
It was real bad. We had NL commented, yes, I usually just go with the first name that comes to mind because it fits best, but the ones I still have to name are elves and tree nymphs, so I'm struggling.
I always have a way easier time with like contemporary names than like spec fic names.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I don't know. I find it's harder in contemporary because, like, I know people with those names, and so it's like naming your child almost. You're like, well, I can't name them that name. I hated that girl in high school, and like, oh, that guy's that weird barista at that one store. We gotta cut that one.
Yes, I've been having the hardest time with this because in the book that I'm finishing up revisions on, there are 2 characters who are love interests, and I accidentally gave them the names of 2 of my very best friends from high school, and I can't keep them. And so I tried changing one of their names, and it has been such a pain, like writing new scenes that are going into this revised novel now and trying to remember the names. It's just impossible. One day the book will be out, and I will be misnaming my characters.
In one of our co-authored books, I accidentally named a character after Megan's grandpa and dad.
It was a combo of my grandpa and dad's names, and he was supposed to be like cute and charming, and I was like, I absolutely can't.
Which was fine. I wasn't that attached to the name. It's just, yeah.
Just mild panic.
Well, like, I noticed this was maybe like a year or 2 ago that there was this small phase of naming love interests Owen, because I guess it's like an older name, it sounds cool, but that's my dad's name. So I'm like, I can't do any of these books. I just can't. This is weird.
We have a great comment from Ellen. For fantasy names, I go into full-on Utah mom mode.
Get out those E's and Y's and GH's.
To be fair, my mom is from Utah, and people only mispronounce my name half the time.
What do they think it is?
Kira.
Oh, okay.
It's Kyra.
Oh, we'll have to do a section on like naming characters in our next week chat when we're helping you flesh out all the
That's a good
different characters
idea.
in your story.
Yeah, write that down.
Yeah. Oh. Well,
I don't see any new comments. If you have any last minute questions, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Until next week.
Until next week, yes. We will be back. Next week is the character workshop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
7:30 Eastern.
Come ready to workshop your characters for your Nano novel. It's going to be so much fun. Please like and subscribe. And we will see you in this week's videos and next week's live stream. Bye.
Bye.